Hello, everyone. Charles Watts here. Welcome back to Inside Arsenal. Thank you for joining me as always. I hope the day is going well wherever you're watching or listening to this around the world. It is Tuesday, which means, of course, it is match day. It is Champions League night tonight. Arsenal in action over in the Netherlands, taking on PSV in the first leg of their last 16 tie. Sorry, big game. It is as well, especially in the context of Arsenal season, given what's happened in the Premier League in the last sort of 10 days or so. All eyes very much on the Champions League when it comes to Arsenal's chances of winning silverware this season, which I think we all think is pretty slim at the moment, given we can barely score a goal. But you never know. Stranger things have happened. You've got to be in it to win it, as they say. And Arsenal are in it right now, and they've got to try and take advantage of that. So we're going to talk about that in today's show. We'll look at what Mikel's been saying ahead of the game. He spoke in his press conference last night over in Eindhoven. So we'll look at what he had to say there. We'll go through the predicted 11. Got some of you guys getting in touch as well. Give me the 11 that you would like to see tonight. We're also going to talk about Josh Kroenke, who has flown in, was at training yesterday. We'll be hanging around for a few days as well after tonight's game. So plenty to get stuck into. But we'll start with Benjamin Sesko, shall we? Interesting development on Sesko, being reported over in Germany. You know, we've all known that he's probably going to be available this summer. He was very, very close to joining Arsenal or moving last summer. It wasn't just Arsenal who were interested in him. There's lots of clubs who were interested in him as well. He decided to stay at Leipzig to sign a new contract. At that time, it was believed that there was no release clause included in that contract. And he just had, the classic gentleman's agreement, as they call it. But reports from Germany now saying that is not the case. And there is a release clause in Sesko's contract. Now, we know Sesko still remains right at the top of Arsenal's radar when it comes to adding a striker, which we know they absolutely need to do this summer. So this is what Florian Plettenberg over at Sky in Germany has reported. It says, until now, there's been talk of a verbal agreement, but Sesko has a formally fixed release clause in his contract until 2029. This clause can be activated starting this summer. It is tied to various parameters such as games played, goals and assists, and increases regularly. Currently, the clause stands at around 70 million for the 21-year-old, but by the end of the season, it is expected to reach approximately 80 million euros. All top English clubs have expressed interest, including United, Tottenham, and Arsenal. The only club not involved in the race is Manchester City. So interesting developments there. I think everyone sort of thought that 60 million might be the figure for Sesko come the summer. I always felt that is pretty low. I can't imagine Leipzig. I know Leipzig's model is kind of based around selling players and everything, but they still want to get good dollar for their money. And you're talking about one of the most highly rated young strikers in Europe in Benjamin Sesko, and there is a big market for him, as Florian says there. And as we saw last summer, it wasn't just Arsenal who were in the mix for Sesko. There's a lot of clubs. So 60 million never quite felt enough. I think 80 million euros, which is around 66 million pounds, feels a much more realistic sort of number. If you're Leipzig, that's kind of what you want. If you've got clubs queuing up for your top striker, he's just 21 years old, he's just signed a new contract. I think sort of 66, 70 million pounds is definitely the sort of figure you'll be looking at. I mean, look, Sesko's having a very good season. Again, he got 18 goals last season in all comps. He's already up to 17 goals this season in all competitions for Leipzig. 10 of those in the Bundesliga, just under 1 in 2 in the Bundesliga record. He scored 4 in 8 in the Champions League this season. So he's a record of 1 goal every 2 games in the Champions League. He's got 3 in 3 in the German Cup. So 17 goals from 34 games. That's bang on averaging a goal every 2 games, which for a 21-year-old striker who's still learning and still known to be pretty raw, that's a very good record, albeit obviously in Germany. We're not talking about doing that in the Premier League. He's got himself 5 assists as well. So it's been a good season, backing up that sort of breakthrough year he had last season for Sesko. And the expectation is he's certainly going to go. As I said at the start, I still believe he is the guy at the top of the radar. I know everyone talks about Alexander Isak, but as I said recently, I think if you're seriously expecting Arsenal to sign Alexander Isak this summer, I just think you've got to prepare yourself for the disappointment that is just, unless all the stars somehow align, I just can't see it happening. I would love it to happen. He's my absolute first choice, number one choice, but I just can't see it because of the money that Newcastle want, especially if they end up getting themselves into Europe as well. I would be stunned if Alexander Isak not just moves to Arsenal, but moves anywhere. I just think Newcastle are going to keep hold of him at least for another season. Sesko is definitely the more realistic target of the two. I just think it's an interesting one. I think at 66 million pounds, I think that is in modern football. I don't think that is a bad price tag. I'm not put off by that price tag. of sort of 80 million euros, 66 million pounds. Now, obviously, it could go higher, as Florin's reporting there, that this release clause he's got does increase depending on how many goals he scores. So if he ends the season superbly and adds, another 10 goals, maybe gets close to 30 goal a season mark, maybe that puts the price up even more. And then you'd have to look at it. But, he just fits the criteria for Arsenal. He's big, strong, powerful. He's a shooter as well. When I say that, he just he gets shots away, to the frustration of some of his teammates and the Leipzig fans, from what I hear. He almost shoots a little bit too much. But I don't think you could really. I don't think if you come to Arsenal, I don't think you really can shoot too much, because so few of the players tend to actually shoot when they get close to goal anyway. That it'd just be nice to have someone. It's why we love Maneri, isn't it? Because he takes responsibility in and around the penalty area, and having someone like Sesko, I think would certainly add to that. And the attributes are there for him to turn into this, a real superstar type signing. We're all talking about Alexander Isak now, but at the time when he was at Sociedad, most people were looking at Isak and saying, 70 million pounds for someone whose goal record isn't that great. There wasn't this massive groundswell of opinion that Arsenal should have signed Isak when he was at Sociedad, when Newcastle decided to. But now there is, obviously, because Newcastle signed him when he was very, very raw. They've turned him into this superb striker, one of the most in-demand strikers in European football right now. Maybe, that's what you would hope. If you could sign someone like Isak, that's who it could potentially turn into. So, yeah, that's the latest on Benjamin Sesko. Sorry, let me know your thoughts on that. If you think that would be a good deal for Arsenal, 80 million euros, 66, 70 million pounds, is that a fair price for Sesko this summer, or would you spend that elsewhere? Let me know in the comments below. On Josh Kroenke, who was at Arsenal training yesterday, was pictured with, obviously, Jason Ato, the interim sporting director, with Richard Garlick as well. They walked out to watch some of the training session at the game yesterday. Felt kind of very pointed that he was there, because this was his open training session where the TV cameras were, the media were there. So, that Arsenal didn't want to hide the fact that he's come over. He didn't want to hide the fact that he's come over. He knew that it would be picked up straight away if he walked out to the training session. He didn't wait for the cameras to go before he headed out there. So maybe it's a bit of sort of show of faith, show of strength, show of unity in difficult times, whatever it is you want to call it. Mikel was asked about if he'd spoken to him at his press conference last night. He said no, because he had to go. But yes, I was very happy to have him around. He's around a lot for big moments. He's the one who really wants to be with the team. It's great to have him. He's been around today and hopefully in the next few days as well. I'd presume he's gone over to the Netherlands for the game tonight, and he will be hanging around, potentially heading up to Old Trafford at the weekend for that game against Manchester United. Quite interesting. His latest trip comes at a time when we know Arsenal are closing in on the appointment of the new sporting director. Andrea Berta obviously shot towards the top of the list, or seems to be right at the top of the list when it comes to a potential replacement for Edu. Jason Ato was with Josh Kroenke at the training ground yesterday. He was the one walking out to the training pictures with him, the current interim, obviously. But it seems like Andrea Berta is very much at the top of at the front of the queue when it comes to potential new sporting directors at Arsenal. So yeah, interesting that he's there. Whether that means that something is very, very imminent now in terms of potential contract signing, Berta actually coming in and officially being announced, we'll have to wait and see on that. But I've had lots of reaction from you guys talking about Andrea Berta. Obviously, we spoke at length about the potential of him coming in and being Edu's replacement yesterday, going through some of the plus points. I mean, I'm sure there are some negatives. I have to say, when I look at Berta at the moment and I look at his list of achievements, I look at how Atletico have done during his time at the club, I do think that any potential negatives, I can't think of too many of them, to be honest. Maybe some of the deals haven't worked out great, some of the really big money attacking deals, but everyone has misses on their resume when it comes to signing players. And maybe the sort of really big money ones, you look at Thomas Lemar and you look at João Felix, haven't quite worked out. Well, they didn't work out at all, in fact. So maybe you can put that on the negatives, but there's definitely lots of positives. And here's what some of you guys have had to say. Who's that at the top? TDTM82 says Griezmann, Rodri, David Villa, Kieran Trippier and Jota signed for bargain prices. He's extremely astute with attacking players, and that's absolutely 100% what Arsenal require. Please get him. I mean, when you say he's extremely astute, he did spend, or the club under his stewardship as sporting director spent about 130 million or whatever it was on João Felix, and they spent 75 million on Thomas Lemar. So they're not exactly the most sort of financially astute attacking signings. But I get what you mean when you add other list names into that. Some excellent business has been done while he's been at the helm. And as I said, you're always going to have misses when it comes to signing players. Not every signing works out. It's impossible. It just doesn't happen. You can be convinced that it will work out, and it doesn't. When you look at the really big money signings across world football, the top ones when it comes to signing strikers and signing wingers, the majority of them don't work out. It has to be said when you go through that list. But on the whole, he has done some very, very good business, no doubt. Sea Lord says, on sporting director, I agree with what you said on Bertra. I also get the impression that Arteta would actually want someone who challenges him and has different views sometimes, as long as the overall philosophy is similar. Do you agree, or do you think Arteta would want the control that having someone who agrees with him all the time would bring? Yes, I don't think Arteta loves to be challenged. I really do think that, in terms of, I think he really likes, he just really likes the sort of going up and having a battle, not necessarily with someone, but with himself a lot of the time as well. I think he kind of thrives on that. And so I don't think he'll be bothered about having someone who challenges him. I think he'll probably see it as important. I know a lot of people are like, oh, he just wants a yes man. I genuinely don't believe that. From everything that I know about Arteta and how he's done in his career, I think he's always liked to be someone who really sort of battles against something and feels like he's fighting against something. So I don't think he'd want to be in an environment where it is just he gets it all his own way. I think he wants top people around him to help get the club to be where Arteta wants it to be. So I don't really think he would want this sort of yes man that people seem to think that he would. Hudaguna says, Berta is exactly the kind of sporting director that we need. I'm all for it. And GB says, Alabe is a talent. This is Roberto Alabe, obviously another of the front runners with Sociedad. Says, Alabe is a talent identifier at Sociedad that does not have the same immediate pressure to win as Arsenal. Berta is a better candidate, in my opinion. Aito is a definite no. So that's what some of you guys have been saying on the possible arrival of Andrea Berta as Arsenal's next sporting director. Right, moving on to tonight's game then. Mikel obviously had his press conference in Eindhoven yesterday evening, going through a few things on what he had to say. He said it's a game that brings obviously a different energy. It's that competition that puts everyone on their toes. We've done a lot already this season, and now it's the moment to start to make another strong step in the right direction that we want. I'm very excited for the game. He was asked how important it'll be to take a positive result from tonight's game. He says, you're playing two games, you know that, and everything starts tonight. Tonight, I'm changing the words here because obviously he said this yesterday. Tonight, the more we play with the intention to dominate the game, be better than them and win it, that's the better the result will be, I'm sure. I mean, look, is it essential that tonight goes well? No. This stage last season, Arsenal lost at Porto in the first leg, and then they overturned that at the Emirates. It was tough. It was a long old battle. It went to penalties, but they did get it done. So, defeat doesn't mean the end of the road for Arsenal tonight, but such as a problem scoring goals at the moment, you absolutely do not want to be going back to the Emirates with a bit of a mountain to climb. So they've got to stay in the tie. Ideally, at least go back on level terms. If you can get yourself a lead, then that would be absolutely fantastic. On PSV's recent form, Mikel said, the results vary in football. What I'm more interested in is how they behave, how they play, why they do certain things, and what we expect them to do against us, and what their weaknesses are to try and beat them. Obviously, Arsenal played PSV a lot of times in recent years. They've had two games, which was 4-0, I think it was, at the Emirates 2 years ago, and then they lost 2-0 in PSV when Luke de Jong came off the bench and changed that game. Last year, they won 1-0 at the Emirates, and then I think it was 1-1, wasn't it, at PSV. On how different he expects it to be this year, Mikel says every situation is different. 1 year in football is a long, long time. The context has changed. They have other players as well. We have other players as well. Momentum is different. We played a competition at the moment where we are already qualified. They weren't, and now it's a tie to decide who is through. He's talking about, obviously, last year when Arsenal had already gone through, when it was at 1-1, and PSV had something to play for, and Arsenal didn't. PSV, interesting run of form at the moment, not great. I think they're 4 games without a win. The only games they've won in the last 6 have been good wins against Feyenoord in the Cup and Juventus in the Champions League, but they've lost a bit of ground in the title race to Ajax. There's lots of goals in PSV's games. I think they score lots of goals, but they're very, very open, or they can be very, very open defensively. I think I saw a stat. It might have been Sam. Let me have a look at this. Sam Dean from the Telegraph and just see if this is right. No, it's not. but I saw a stat that they conceded some ridiculous amount of goals in recent times. Here we go. Since the turn of the year, they've kept one clean sheet and they've conceded 29 goals in 14 games. That stat comes from Simon Collins at Evening Standard. So they score lots of goals, but they concede lots of goals. And you go back to that 4-0 win at the Emirates a couple of years ago, how open PSV were in that game. They played to Arsenal's strengths. Now, obviously, Arsenal don't have the strikers and the attackers they had back then tonight, but hopefully if there is a bit more space, they will be able to do something. So I'm expecting quite an open game tonight. I have to say, Jurien Timber has been speaking about it. He was at the press conference as well as Mikel Arteta, and he was obviously asked on Arsenal's struggles at the moment and the struggles in front of goal and how everyone's focusing on the attack and how toothless it is at times. And this is what he had to say. I think the motivation is there. It's an amazing league to play in. We showed in the group stages that we did really well. We have a good team, and this is a beautiful game and a chance to change the narrative. Arsenal is a big club. I feel like I'm part of something big. This team can win a lot, and we always do everything to win prizes. And this is another step towards that. It's a big challenge. PSV has shown everyone that they have a lot of quality, not just up front, but as a team, they are very strong. And this will be very difficult. Obviously, I thought that was interesting. We said this is a chance to change the narrative, and it is. If this goes wrong for Arsenal, if they don't score a goal, if they struggle, if they lose without scoring a goal, then the narrative is going to be exactly the same. In fact, it's going to get even bigger. All the focus is going to be on that. But if Arsenal can go here today, find a performance, find some goals, they can change the narrative. They can change the momentum. And hopefully they can do exactly that. Timber added, I think we have so much quality in our group. Of course, we have injuries, especially up front, but it's a beautiful challenge for us and our front players or anyone to score goals. And hopefully we can show that we have to score. We have to win in the Champions League. You only have 2 games, so you don't get a second chance. You have to go for it. I don't see it as a negative, what we've been through, especially the last couple of weeks, but it's a challenge for us and we have to take it. We're always working on it, attacking wise, defending wise. We are always working on things and we will never stop doing that. So that's what Jurien Timber has had to say ahead of tonight's game. Right, predicted 11-wise. Oh, no, I haven't added Declan Rice. Sorry, I've still got Click to Edit there next to Odegaard. Maybe we should play Click to Edit tonight. Maybe he will score some goals. That we had. He could be our super sub, our attacking super sub. Bring in Click to Edit. If you're watching on YouTube, you can understand what I'm talking about. If you're listening on podcast, you won't have a clue. Basically, I've got the graphic up with my starting 11. And instead of putting Declan Rice's name in there, I forgot. So it just says Click to Edit. So, yeah, this was my predicted 11 for tonight's game. There is I was wondering maybe Calafiori to play at left back again, but I think Lewis Skelly probably comes back in for this one, and I've stuck with Marino as the striker. So I've gone Raya in goal, Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, and Lewis Skelly as a back 4. I've gone Rice, Odegaard. Sorry, I totally mucked this up, haven't I? I've mucked the graphic up. What I wanted to put there was Partey as the 6, and then Odegaard and Rice next to him. And then up front, I've got Maneri, Marino and Trossard. So I'll just run through that again, considering I've made such a balls up of it on the screen. Raya, back 4 of Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, a midfield of Partey, Odegaard and Rice, and then a front 3 of Maneri, Marino and Leandro Trossard. This is what some of you guys have had to say ahead of the game. Appit says, my lineup gives us solid defenders, potential attackers. My thinking is that Timber can progress the ball and White provides overlapping runs. Also, Timber can track back and help White. So you've got Timber up front or on the right wing. So your team is back 4 of Calafiori, Gabriel, Saliba and White. Midfield of Partey, Rice and Odegaard. And then you've got Timber on the right-hand side of the attack with Maneri and Trossard. John says, hey, Charles, I think we'll see the usual Raya, White, Saliba, Gabriel, MLS, Odegaard, Partey, Rice, Maneri, Marino, Trossard. PSV haven't failed to score at least 1 goal since December 14th, often scoring 2 or 3. Possibly too big a risk to change system for the away game. Score prediction 2-2. So long as we get something out of this game, then we can be positive as we beat them 4-0 at our place last time. It wasn't 4-0. I'm pretty sure it was 1-0. 4-0 was 2 years ago, I think. Or am I imagining that? I might be getting that the other way. I might be getting that the wrong way around, actually. Yes, I think I probably am getting that the wrong way around. Matt says, team for PSV, Raya, White, Saliba, Gabriel, Lewis Skelly, Partey, Rice, Odegaard, Maneri, Sterling and Trossard. I'd bring in White to give you the overlap and combo options down the right. Sterling as a false 9 in a desperate situation it's worth a try. I'm backing him to find space in the box, which he's always been good at, and getting on the end of cutbacks from the byline. Arsenal to win 2-1. Here's hoping. Come on, you Gunners. And Mblenku says, with Ben White perhaps not ready to start, particularly in a wing-back role that requires a lot of running and down the flank, I think Arteta should simply the formation to fit our current availability or lack thereof. Arteta should deploy 4-4-2 formation with the 4 in midfield, a diamond, and Odegaard as a 10 behind Trossard and Waneri. So your lineup is Raya, then Timber, Saliba, Gabriel, Calafiori, Rice, Partey, Marino, Rice, and Odegaard, and then Waneri and Trossard as the front 2. Right, thank you very much for everyone getting in touch. Appreciate that. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Obviously, at the end of the game tonight, if you want to get involved in tomorrow's sort of review show, hopefully reviewing a very good Arsenal win, come back to this show after full time. Leave your comments on what impressed you, who impressed you, your thoughts on the game, and I'll pull them together and get them included in tomorrow's show. Until then, everyone, have a fantastic day. Enjoy the game later. I'll speak to you soon. Bye-bye.